Hi, I'm Jackie Keenan. In Chicago Business Today, big business and Obamacare. Since Congress passed healthcare reform legislation 2 weeks ago, some of the biggest corporations have announced big hits to their earnings. Boeing, Caterpillar, and Deere have said they'll take $100 million plus write-offs when they lose a tax deduction on a subsidy for retiree drug benefits. But health reform may actually turn out to be a big plus for these companies. Managing editor Brandon Koppel sat down with senior reporter John Pletz to discuss how exactly the new healthcare bill will affect Chicago's biggest corporations.
John, right out of the gate with this healthcare bill, Boeing, Deere, a bunch of other companies announced big charges, $100 million, $150 million this quarter. But long-term, picture doesn't look so bad.
No, there's a lot to like for companies over the long haul with this bill. A lot of things that may actually reduce their health care costs.
That was the idea, right?
Yeah, that was one of the ideas of the reform. It's one that doesn't get talked about much.
And what are some of the things that are going to help them?
Well, the biggest one is probably that Medicare drug coverage gets improved, and as that starts to look a whole lot like private insurance coverage, you'll see more and more companies opt to just allow their employees to use Medicare coverage, subsidize it with a small amount of cash instead of providing them insurance. And that's probably the biggest savings.
And so, and a big part of that is getting rid of the notorious donut hole.
Exactly. Medicare will pay more and more. Currently, all drug costs, Medicare probably provides about half for people over 65. By 2020, they'll be paying about 75% of that bill.
What are the other savings for big companies here?
Well, one of the other big savings long-term doesn't get talked about very much is the under 65 retirees. Currently, since there's not much of a market for folks to get insurance on the private market, companies who have retirees under age 65, particularly industrialized or unionized companies.
Big manufacturers have a lot of those people.
Particularly those companies who have a large number of retirees under age 65, the companies have to end up providing them coverage, and it's very expensive. If these exchanges work out in any way like they're expected to, those companies will be able to allow those employees to go find insurance on the open market, and that gets them out of the business of providing coverage to these folks.
And isn't there also a benefit, even if companies choose to continue providing all or some of the coverage, they can let somebody else administer it and save themselves a lot of money in administration?
Well, there's some of that going on now, but the primary benefit is if they are able to allow their employees to purchase coverage someplace else. It reduces the overhead expenses for the company. They're no longer having to provide that coverage.
And we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars for companies like Caterpillar and Boeing with massive pools of retirees, right?
Yeah, potentially. It could be several hundred million over time.
Dwarfing what the kind of charges they're taking this quarter.
Right. The big charges you're seeing are in that $200 million range, and these sorts of savings could be several hundred million, probably into the billions over time.
What else is there in the health reform bill that could impact these companies?
One of the biggest impacts will be what we all see, which is potentially by insuring more people with a smaller uninsured population, it means we're paying less of the bill. You're paying less for those folks who don't have insurance. And that's probably one of the biggest things, is ultimately driving down the general cost of healthcare, even if it's just a few percentage points. That has a massive impact on companies' bottom lines.
Right. Okay. Thanks, John.
And that's all for this edition of Chicago Business Today. Tomorrow we'll look at how healthcare reform may affect small business, so tune in then. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.